The simple slew limiter will probably be the simplest case study we look at. The purpose of a slew limiter is to reduce the rate at which a voltage changes from one value to another value. The primary use of a slew limiter is generally with the keyboard main control voltage to allow you to control how rapidly one note moves to the next note. Without a slew limiter, the frequency of the notes and any other devices that may be driven by that same control voltage will change their values instantaneously, or almost so. Whereas with a slew limiter, the voltage changes gradually to some extent, and the note slides from one to another. The slew limiter can, of course, be used in other contexts, but use with the keyboard is the primary purpose. In our slew limiter, we want to be able to accept a range of signals within the range of the output of the op-amp, in other words, between the saturation voltages, so that would be typically about plus and minus 13 volts. The output will be the slew limited version of the changing input voltages. We'll have one control, a single knob connected to a potentiometer that will adjust the time constant of a simple RC circuit. The way we're going to do this is to just build a simple RC low-pass filter, which I feel sure you looked at in your first circuits course. And if you were to drive this circuit with a square wave, for example, instead of getting a square wave out, when the square wave went high, the output would exponentially rise to the upper level, and then when the square wave went low, it would exponentially drop back down to the low level. And of course, the rate at which it does that can be controlled by adjusting the value of the resistance. We want to be able to adjust this so that the time constant of our circuit is between 5 milliseconds and 10 seconds. That's a fairly large range. As usual in this course at least, we're going to power our operational amplifiers with plus and minus 15 volts. We want to implement this with only 2 operational amplifiers, so we could use, for example, a TL072 and have just a single IC on the circuit board. And that basically summarizes the specifications of our slew limiter. Now note, you can also build a slew limiter that has a linear change from one voltage to another. This has some advantages over the exponential change, and it also has some disadvantages, which we may talk about later in the course. However, implementing a linear change between the voltages is a good bit harder than doing the exponential one. The exponential is really easy, which is why this is our first case study. As mentioned, our basic slew limiter is a simple RC low-pass filter. You feed in Vn, and depending on the setting of a variable resistor, it takes different amounts of times for that capacitor to charge up, and you then monitor the voltage on the capacitor as the output. Now, this does have some practical problems in using it with real circuits, in that you don't want to load down the circuits driving it, and you need to make sure that whatever circuits are being driven by this don't change the parameters of your little RC circuit. So we really need to put buffers on both input and output. That's really easily done with a pair of voltage followers, and there are our 2 operational amplifiers. This circuit, as it exists, does have some practical problems, and we will start considering those in the next video.